Hello, Strictly Business listeners. This is your host, Cynthia Littleton. I'm so excited today to give you a sneak listen to a podcast project we've been working on for a few months, Daily Variety. On this show, we talk to variety journalists and guests about news, personalities, and trends that are making headlines in showbiz. Variety has the most incredible masthead of journalists covering media and entertainment. In addition to our strength in LA, New York, and London, almost every day of the year, Variety is somewhere in the world covering a festival or a market or a premiere. We want to showcase all this great work in a new way with this program. Of course, we'd love to hear your feedback at variety.com. Thanks for checking us out, and away we go. Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. Today is no ordinary day, it's Emmy nominations day. The contenders for the 77th annual Emmy Kudos were unveiled this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 77th Emmy Award nominations announcement. We are up bright and early to celebrate the standout work of the past year.
HBO Max leads the field among platforms by a wide margin with 142 bids. Casey Bloys & Co. pulled out a new personal best thanks to the heft of The Penguin, The White Lotus, The Last of Us, and Hacks. Apple TV Plus drama Severance was the most nominated program overall with 27. Apple TV Plus leaders Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlicht were probably toasting with Kool-Aid, as Apple also had the most nominated comedy this year with its buzzy freshman show, The Studio. In today's episode, we'll hear from TV editor Michael Schneider and chief awards editor Clayton Davis on the Emmy nominations, what made sense, what didn't, and what was a pure surprise to these expert prognosticators. We'll also talk about what an Emmy means to a platform as a business proposition these days. After that, we'll take a 90-degree turn to a discussion of the 50th anniversary of a movie that had enormous influence on pretty much everything that came after it, Robert Altman's epic Nashville. It changed the life of Variety chief film critic Owen Gleiberman. He'll explain how. Other than the Emmy nominations, here are a few things from this morning that you need to know. Fox News is the latest TV network to court podcast talent. The channel has cut a deal to distribute the current events podcast Ruthless that is hosted by 4 GOP insiders. Certainly after this deal, you'll probably be seeing more of Josh Holmes, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, and the host who goes by the pseudonym Comfortably Smug on Fox News very soon. And something of interest for fans of early Fleetwood Mac. The song catalog of co-founder Peter Green has been sold to Primary Wave Music for an undisclosed fee. Green's notable tunes include Black Magic Woman. Yes, although Carlos Santana made it famous, Fleetwood Mac was the first to record that spooky song in 1968. Now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about what's making news in showbiz. Let's get right into the Emmy conversation with Clayton Davis and Michael Schneider. Michael Schneider, Clayton Davis, thanks for joining me. It's been a long day for you already.
Happy Emmy Day to those who celebrate. And you know who's really celebrating is one Casey Bloys, who, Cynthia, as you know, I had a chance to talk to this morning. And needless to say, he is over the moon with their 142 nominations, a best ever for HBO and HBO Max. Pretty astounding. And, you look at just these shows, the sheer strength of The Penguin, The Last of Us, The White Lotus, Hacks, The Pit. They spread that wealth around.
Clayton, of course, you are famous. Everybody knows you for your predictions there. So tell me how to score yourself. How you feeling this morning?
I actually feeling really, really well. Like in some areas, it was pretty business as usual. Comedy series went exactly the way we thought. Limited series went exactly the way I thought. A lot of the some of the acting races, there were a lot of great stuff there. I mean, HBO flexed more than I've ever seen them flex. And I think if you especially look pound for pound by how many series were nominated overall, Penguin was across the board. White Lotus did exactly what it did last time with 23 nominations, but then a lot of shows that never got Emmy love before, The Rehearsal, Somebody Somewhere, like they all did really well. That was like, some of the real surprising things.
Severance is atop the leaderboard with 27 nominations. Did that 27 tally for Severance surprise you?
Yes, it did. Considering that the first season got 14 and it took so long to come back, the fact that it came soaring back the way it has, I mean, it's really going to show some muscle there. And then its one challenger is The Pit. Got 13 nominations, which sounds like not like a lot, but it's a show that doesn't have a score, doesn't have special effects. It's one set the whole time. So production design and cinematography aren't exactly like, on the docket for it, but those two are really going to be a great epic battle that I can't wait to see play out.
Mike, what other thoughts? Are there any nominations that stood out to you as things that just came out of nowhere?
I'll throw a couple things out at you that shocked me. I think key was the fact that Squid Games did not get a single nomination, from a show that in season 1 did huge. But, beyond that, shout out to Apple TV Plus because, obviously they dominated in both drama and comedy with the two most nominated shows in Severance and The Studio. One of the most interesting thing is Jimmy Kimmel was nominated 4 times, but for 4 different things. For his show, of course.
They can't get enough Jimmy.
For hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He's had four different nominations this year, which was pretty interesting.
Clayton, on a much more serious note, you are a chronicler of how the different awards bodies do on the issue of diversity and inclusion. Clayton, what do you think today's tally tells us about this year? And I'd also like to ask you for more of a longer, like the 5-year sweep since you joined us.
Yeah. So since 2020, I got here, they had their least amount of actors of color recognized in the last 5 years. So it's 24
For this year.
For this year, 24 out of 94 available slots were occupied by people of color, about 25%. 2022 was a record year for them, which was 42. I always come into these conversations to say it's easy to blame the TV Academy, the Film Academy for Oscars so white, Emmy so white, and there's some responsibility upon the voters to watch as much as they can. However, they are a reflection of the industry. And in this time where we see a 3% drop in submissions from last year, which last year had a 6% drop from the year before, and DEI is constantly under attack at the moment. But even with that said, 24, on its face, it really looked bulkier than I had anticipated because I thought we were going to be in like the 19 range. So 24 actually was better than I anticipated.
In terms of number, you're not talking about 2024.
In terms of raw numbers, yeah,
number, right.
I was encouraged by that. But we still have some work to do, and there's some great strides there. Sterling K. Brown is now tied with Don Cheadle. His 7th show that he's been nominated for. It's the most ever by a black man, tied with Don Cheadle. That's incredible.
He's definitely Emmy bait, going into Emmy bait category.
Quinta's the 3rd most nominated black woman ever in her category. We have the most women of color nominated in supporting actress comedy for the 2nd time after 2 years ago. So we're making strides. It's just, we want them every year.
Let me close out by asking also on a serious note, the Emmys have always, for 77 years, have been a form of bragging rights for the television business, but it does seem like the value of an Emmy has become more crystallized at a time in the industry when it's harder to say, I'm the number 1 show in the country because people aren't watching the way they used to. Mike, why are they fighting so hard to get these? What do these do for them as a business?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it in the streaming age where, these streamers are constantly dealing with churn and they really have to sell themselves to the public on their value proposition. And what better value proposition than telling your customer that, well, we have the best programming, we have quality programming, and here's proof. We are the most Emmy nominated. We have the critically acclaimed shows. It really matters now as a business proposition for these companies in the way that it didn't back in the broadcast days where you really were more focused on advertising and other means and ratings were different kinds of currency. Now that currency is about convincing people to spend their money to subscribe to your service. And HBO started that, back in the 90s. And eventually that was adopted by the streamers as well. And now that's a real big part of their business.
To the whole awards game, and obviously admittedly self-serving in this aspect, but it's the last remaining measurement that consumers can understand. Nielsen ratings are not really like the way they used to, or mean or translate to a consumer.
Viva la Emmys. Thank you both so much for taking the time. It's been a busy day and it's not over yet. Deeply appreciated.
Phase two, here we go.
From scoping out future award winners, now we look back 50 years at Robert Altman's landmark of American cinema, Nashville. My colleague Owen Gleiberman, Variety's chief film critic, pens a powerful column in this week's print edition of Variety about the impact the movie had on him as a college freshman. Once I proofed that page last week, I knew Owen had to come on and share that story with Daily Variety. Owen Gleiberman, Variety's chief film critic, thanks so much for joining me.
Nice to be here, Cynthia.
Owen, you wrote a column that will be published in this week's print edition of Variety. You wrote a column that was so moving, so touching, so personal. You talked about the movie Nashville, Robert Altman's epic story of America that was released in June of 1975, and your column really takes us back to that moment in time, both for the country and for where you were. You write so movingly about what this movie meant to you. Tell me what it was like for you to write that column and take yourself back to that place.
Well, it was kind of cathartic, actually. Nashville is my number one all-time favorite movie. And it's not a movie I chose to be in that place. It chose me. It had an effect on me unlike any other film I'd ever seen. I saw it when I was a freshman in college, College Film Society, the year after it came out, actually. I went to the University of Michigan, this very crowded place, in with 20,000 other kids. You're trying to find out who you are, trying to find your niche. My niche was that I was a film geek. So I was going to all these movies. And then in December of first semester, I saw Nashville. And it literally blew me away and blew my head open the way that nothing ever had. I'd never seen a movie that mirrored life the way that Nashville did. It seemed to be literally these 24 characters wandering around the country music capital, stars, fans, politicians, hangers-on. It seemed as rich and full as the life off screen. And the movie, as a result, possessed me. It kind of took over my imagination. I thought about nothing else for 6 months. And it was almost like a religious experience before and after Nashville.
Who among the cast members really stood out to you?
The funny thing is, it's the kind of movie where every actor in it becomes your favorite actor when they're on screen because you just love them all and they all seem so real and so human. But there are some that stand out. Lily Tomlin as this gospel singer who's married to a celebrity lawyer and has an affair with Keith Carradine's country singer. Keith Carradine as that singer, just capturing the kind of moody narcissism of a mid-70s rock star like I've never seen. And Ronnie Blakely as a character kind of modeled on Loretta Lynn, but doing her own thing with it.
So you're in college and you are studying this movie. How did this religious experience lead you to your career today?
Well, I became so obsessed with Nashville that I literally wanted to write about it. And they had a Robert Altman festival the next semester, coincidentally. And I decided to cover that for my school newspaper, and that kind of got me into writing. But more than that, I wanted to figure out what it was about this movie that had so moved me. In the middle of the 1970s, America really had become this kind of lost and broken place. I mean, we'd broken away from the middle class ideals of the 50s. The whole dream of the counterculture had sort of fallen apart. This was post-Vietnam, post-Watergate. What did we believe in anymore? And what Nashville showed me is it showed me what the country was. And it showed me that as flawed and as kind of lost a place as it had become, it was still a place that you could fall in love with, because you kind of fell in love with all the characters in this movie. And it showed you that there was something about what it was to be in America that you loved. It was a kind of freedom. There was a feeling of American freedom somehow right in the DNA of the movie.
Owen, did you ever meet Altman? Did you ever tell him of his incredible influence on your career?
I did finally get to meet Altman. I think by that point, I was probably past gushing about Nashville, because I met him in the late 80s. I had lunch with him at a hotel in Boston when he was doing a publicity tour for one of his films, Streamers, and he was not in a good mood. He had a real descent after that. The movies he made in the second half of the 70s were not good, and he kind of fell out of popularity and was in the wilderness for a while. It really was not until 1992 when he made The Player, which is another truly great film.
A landmark movie, and the reason why Seth Rogen's character in the studio is named Griffin Mill. It is a total nod to The Player.
Absolutely. The studio, which I love, is very much son of The Player and knows it. The Player was just a visionary film about Hollywood.
It's quite a legacy for an auteur who left us in 2006 at the age of 81.
When Altman died, a movie theater in my neighborhood decided to program a number of his films in tribute. I went to see Nashville. I hadn't seen it in a lot of years, and I wanted to know, would it hold up? It did, but more than that, something hit me with a really surprising force of revelation, which is that seeing this film in the middle 2000s, its meaning had changed to me. What I saw was that Altman, in 1975, had foreseen the internet age. And by that, the whole metaphysic of what we talk about when we talk about how the web changed everything, and how we're all in our own little worlds, our own little niches, that the fragmentation of America was really accomplished by the internet. Altman foresaw all that quality. That's actually what Nashville is about.
Well, Owen, I've really enjoyed chatting with you about this, but once again, your writing in this column is so beautiful. I thought it would be great if you would end by reading us a couple passages, and folks, do not miss it. Go get your print edition of Variety on Wednesday. Look for it on Variety.com on Wednesday. Owen, please take it away.
This section is just about how Nashville kind of captured the 1970s. I was a teenager in the 1970s, an era that's romanticized now, and for good reason. There was a lot of freedom, a lot of passion, a lot of great music, a lot of pinball. But there was a weird spiritual waywardness to that time. As a culture, we no longer believed in the suburban dream of the 50s. We no longer believed in the hippie dream of the 60s. The moon landing was a sci-fi dream that within 5 minutes came to feel like a rerun. The era was full of fake religions, Est, alien visitors, Lou Reed solo albums. And as each of these things kind of let you down, you were left with a haunting question. Was there anything left that united America? I think that is a lot of what Nashville's about. Let me just finish with a passage in my column that talks about what is probably my favorite scene in the history of motion pictures. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that Altman in 1975 foresaw the internet age, as well as the era we're in now. An America that's fractured, splintered, atomized, balkanized, separated from itself. What Nashville shows us is the great American crack-up. Yet when Ronnie Blakely, as the country star Barbara Jean, gets up on stage at the Opry Bell to sing Tape Deck in his Tractor and Dunes, it's one of the most transcendent sequences in the history of cinema. For a few heartbreakingly blissful moments, the down-home incandescence of her performance seems to pull the world of America together, giving us all a desperate reason to believe.
As we close out today's episode, here are a few things we're watching out for. The ESPYs and Variety's Sports and Entertainment Breakfast will be held Wednesday night and Thursday morning, respectively. One cool thing they have in common this year is honoring Alex Morgan, the pioneering soccer player, for her work to promote pay equity and women's sports. I can't wait to talk to her and her business partner, Dan Levy. That full interview will be featured on this week's Strictly Business podcast, which will be out on Friday. Thursday also brings Netflix's first quarter earnings report. We'll get a curtain raiser on tomorrow's Daily Variety on what to expect from Variety business writer Jennifer Maas. Before we go, congrats to 3 executives at Warner Brothers Games who have been promoted from studio heads to senior vice presidents. Yves LaChance oversees Harry Potter and Game of Thrones games. Sean Himmerich is the main man for Mortal Kombat and DC Studios games. And Stephen Flannery steers all tech and central services. Thanks for listening. This episode of Daily Variety was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Clayton Davis, Michael Schneider, and Owen Gleiberman. It was edited by Aaron Greenwald. Sticks, Nicks, Hick, Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice. And please tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.